Have you had work done?
You can talk.
We got Captain Jack, we got Daleks, we got sexier Daleks, we got Yaz doing stuff, we got a whole lot of Chris Chibnall, what on Metabolus 3 are you doing? I just watched Doctor Who's Revolution of the Daleks New Year's Day special, which sees the Doctor trapped in a Jodie prison as Captain Jack, Yaz, Graham, and Ryan fight a forthcoming Dalek invasion. Every thought I had about this special could be applied to the era of current showrunner Chris Chibnall as a whole. It's safe to say that we're at or possibly past the midpoint of star Jodie Whittaker's tenure, given that no Doctor since Tom Baker has gone more than 3 full seasons in the title role, as subsequent Doctors have followed the 3-year standard set by the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton, as a way for these actors to avoid career stagnation. Oh, not to mention these spicy rumors. So, Revolution of the Daleks feels like a significant way station or tentpole in the Chibnall era, so let's use this 70-minute action-adventure romp as a window into what the Chibnall era has accomplished, where it's fallen short, and where it could head next. First, I will just say straight up, Revolution of the Daleks looks so pretty. The Jodie prison, the Dalek factory, and the invasion set pieces reflect the resplendent production design and cinematography that is the most consistently satisfying trademark of Chibnall's tenure. When Chibnall was the showrunner of Broadchurch, his love for stunning vistas and evocative lighting schemes bled through in every frame, and his vision of Doctor Who is just as sumptuous. I will say that this visual approach of tinting lights all sorts of colors until everything feels like a nightclub is firmly on trend for what the last 5 or 10 years of popular sci-fi has given us. Director of photography Luke Bryan and the rest of the show's DPs corral the family-friendly candy-colored joy of it all with smart deployments of shadow and mist that lend these images depth and texture and keep Doctor Who tethered to its more sinister elements. I was amused that the Chibnall era is so defined by these multicolored hazes that Chibnall writes it into the dialogue itself in this episode, albeit in a convoluted fashion.
Is it the light? The light's been changing really slowly ever since we've been here.
I do admire Chibnall's efforts to bring a palpable sense of menace back to these monsters by eschewing a fleet of enemies to instead show the awful power of a single entity. Last year's New Year's special Resolution got plenty of dramatic mileage out of a Dalek desperate to rebuild itself, and gave lots of screen time to the slimy monster who lives inside the Dalek casing, a preference that continues in Revolution of the Daleks, providing us with some fun and icky horror moments. And speaking of Chibnall's preference of one monster over many, one of Whittaker's most rousing installments, The Haunting of Villa Diodati, focused on the treachery of a lone Cyberman, leaning into the iconic enemy's narrative parallels with Frankenstein's monster, as well as the used future aesthetic reminiscent of Cowboy Bebop or modern Star Wars. This choice to escalate the lone Daleks rampage last year into the full fleet's massacre this year helps retain the urgency of the Dalek threat, no small task when the Doctor has defeated them countless times before. And of course, the upgrade doesn't hurt. I enjoy the sleeker, sexier Daleks with their streamlined domes and ominous glowing red voice boxes, which lent the invasion scenes a grim neo-noir cyberpunk feel. Say what you will about Chibnall as a writer, and I will say plenty, but I only have one word for his aesthetic choices.
Oh, brilliant.
Of course, most Whovians consider production design as a side salad because we know that the main course of this franchise lies in inventive sci-fi and richly drawn characters. Unfortunately, Chibnall has consistently fallen flat in both departments. He seems to have little interest in Doctor Who as a sandbox for insatiable sci-fi and fantasy ideas. He feels way more at home positioning Doctor Who as a business-like procedural, and the TARDIS team as a group of intrepid investigators, which tracks, given his history with the lauded crime thriller that was Broadchurch. Revolution of the Daleks continues this trend with its desire to be a potboiler government conspiracy thriller about a fleet of man-made Daleks born from an unholy alliance between the UK's Prime Minister-in-waiting and an evil American businessman turned politician, aka the most lazily written Trump stand-in I've seen in the past 5 years, and yes, I have seen Wonder Woman 1984. Chibnall's Doctor Who does not want to be sci-fi, it wants to be a crime thriller, a mystery show, a political commentary, and it treats all of the above genres with crude superficiality that often insults viewer intelligence. By contrast, previous showrunner Stephen Moffat eternally reveled in the cleverness of a core idea, leading to cerebral narrative pretzels like Blink, The Girl Who Waited, and Last Christmas, episodes obsessed with exploring the rules that govern a particular antagonist and playing those rules to the hilt. Sometimes he'd explore those sci-fi fantasy ideas at the expense of, say, coherent plotting, or in the case of long-running companion Clara, character development. She herself was a clever idea first and a flesh and blood character at a distant second. I would excuse Chibnall's timidness towards sci-fi innovation or smart use of genre tropes if he gave us beautiful or even consistent character arcs. Unfortunately, Chibnall demonstrates no such care for his own cast of characters, with the Doctor and her companions feeling like empty vessels meant to serve poorly constructed plots. Revolution of the Daleks opens with the Doctor rotting away in a Jadoon prison for 19 years and doing nothing to escape, a far cry from Capaldi's Doctor in Heaven Sent, who worked for 4.5 billion years to escape the confession dial. Let's set aside the fact that her prison stint turned out to be a non-factor in this story, despite her capture serving as the season 12 cliffhanger. The idea of a more passive Doctor who doesn't have all the answers is potentially compelling. Certainly, one can draw the parallels between the 13th Doctor and Peter Davison's 5th Doctor, who also displayed a low-key lead-from-behind persona and didn't always win. But Chibnall doesn't even remain consistent with that passivity. He writes Whittaker's Doctor as inert when the plot needs her to stand still, then out of nowhere strikes her with the bolt of superhero confidence to succeed when it's time to push the episode to conclusion.
I'm the Doctor. I'm the one who stops the Daleks.
Her companions don't fare much better, often presented as a bland three-headed monster, standing in the background beside each other, spouting observations and questions that could have been uttered by any of the three of them.
That's Wi-Fi? Did Tesla have the idea for Wi-Fi?
Famously, Yaz has suffered the most in this department, something that Revolution of the Daleks tries to make up for by casting her as the one most shaken by the Doctor's absence and teaming up with Captain Jack to take down the Daleks. After 2 seasons, we're finally beginning to get a sense of this character, as someone who needs adventure to make sense of her life, like Rose Tyler.
I'd rather not have met her, because having met her and then being without her, that's worse.
As well as someone skeptical of the Doctor's choices, like Donna Noble.
I won't disappear again. Yeah, you will.
So while these character beats seem familiar, the fact that she finally has character beats to play with is something of a win, a sad testament to Chibnall's shoddy character work. Fans seem to chalk the problem up to a quote-unquote crowded TARDIS, making yet another connection to the Davison era in which Nyssa, Tegan, and Adric struggled for screen time so much that the writers just made the horrific choice to kill off Adric, forcing young viewers to confront their own mortality 3 decades before Pixar made it cool. But OG showrunner of New Who, Russell T Davies, excelled in this department. Keep in mind that his Doctor had Rose, Mickey, and Jackie tagging along, and yet those 3 had distinct relationships to each other and to the Doctor, and fulfilled specific roles on their TARDIS adventures that kept both the plot and their individual arcs on track. So the 3 companion setup is possible, but Chibnall seems disinterested in solving it. And as long as we're on the subject of Russell T Davies, the guy knew how to build an arc. Eccleston's battle-worn Doctor, Tennant's Time Lord victorious, Rose Tyler's girl from the shop desperate to escape her humble means, all of these character journeys were carefully drawn over several episodes and seasons, and most importantly, they were emotional, resonant, and often heartbreaking. Post this image from 2006 in a Doctor Who forum, and you'll still get responses from traumatized fans crying too soon. Chibnall provides no such pathos for his characters, and it's all a damn shame because these actors are at the top of their game, somehow spinning cheap story tinsel into acting gold every week. Tosin Cole as Ryan, Bradley Walsh as Graham, and Mandip Gill as Yaz are doing an inordinate and frankly unfair amount of heavy lifting, imbuing these two-dimensional characters with an impressive amount of interiority. Revolution of the Daleks is packed with emotional moments like the Doctor's tense reunion with her fam, Jack imparting his wisdom onto newbie Yaz, or Graham and Ryan's big send-off. But as written, these moments are just a ream of speeches that feel unearned, with the characters alluding to a deep and complicated history with each other that we never got to see on screen. Under most circumstances, a companion shoving the Doctor would be shocking, but here, the moment is just puzzling since the groundwork for the Yaz-Doctor relationship just has not been laid. Even Graham and Ryan's shared vision of the dearly departed Grace is deeply affecting, but also comes out of nowhere. Still, in the moment, you really do buy the emotional weight of these meaningful talks and bittersweet goodbyes, all thanks to these gifted actors slogging through these thankless roles. Speaking of Chibnall letting these actors down, we can't talk about his era without talking about his hyperdrive push toward diversity and political awareness, which is simultaneously one of the sweeping highs and frustrating lows of his era. He gave us the show's first female Doctor, first Black Doctor, first regular Asian companion, Chang Li walked so Yaz could run, first regular Black male companion, Mickey Smith walked so Ryan could run, and regular senior citizen companion, Wilf ran so Graham could soft shoe. But what good are these firsts when their characters feel second-rate? Chibnall has a habit of stuffing any given episode with socio-political commentary, which often implodes the story because it feels disconnected from our cast of characters, even when the politics at hand would no doubt impact them. In Revolution of the Daleks, Chibnall wields themes of social unrest and militarized police, relevant in 2019 when this episode was shot, and grimly even more relevant today. You'd think that a pair of law enforcers, policewoman Yasmin Khan and Torchwood veteran Captain Jack Harkness, would have distinct perspectives on this subject, yet these characters simply battle these Dalek security drones as if it's just another item on a to-do list. Chibnall routinely misses the opportunity to make these political issues personal for our heroes, yet there have been luminous exceptions. Season 11's tribute to Rosa Parks, written by Mallory Blackman, not only displayed the Chibnall era's sharpest ideas about time travel, it also pulled no punches when confronting the implications of each character's racial identity as they work to protect Parks' legacy. This episode serves as a stellar example of how to filter a politically driven plot through the unique emotions and perspectives of specific characters. Yet, by and large, Chibnall doesn't appear to have internalized any of its lessons, and it breaks my heart to hear the more toxic corners of Doctor Who fandom who make it seem like any attempts at inclusion or political awareness inherently damage the show. This feels particularly untrue when one considers beloved tales like Doctor Who and the Silurians, or the Zygon invasion and inversion, or any of the well-told Dalek stories, all of which feature cogent political metaphors in service of a compelling story. And you can't take any anti-diversity rant seriously when you recall rich characters like Bill Potts, Martha Jones, Missy, or yeah, I'll say it, Banna Kefalata. So I'd say Chibnall's issue isn't in these overall casting and storytelling decisions, it's all in the follow-through. Whatever he does, he just can't seem to give his own TARDIS a smooth landing. All in all, I'm rooting for Chris Chibnall. We're all rooting for him. Revolution of the Daleks, as with most of his episodes, featured eye-catching aesthetics and empathetic performances, yet was plagued with too much slipshod storytelling and unearned character moments. I suspect Chibnall will continue to give us the candy bar version of Doctor Who in the upcoming season. Buckets of sugar, dangerously little substance. And while I was initially excited about the Doctor and Yaz having the TARDIS all to themselves for season 13, I'm highly skeptical of this latest news that John Bishop is climbing aboard as a new companion. Time will tell if Chibnall repeats his mistake of over-cultivating this guy and leaving Yaz in the dust. But vestiges of this era still leave me excited for the future. I can't wait until we finally unravel the mystery of the Ruth Doctor. As played by Jo Martin, her regal yet fun-loving take on the Doctor is more precise, compelling, and just plain entertaining than 13, and I hope she takes on the Doctor's mantle after Whittaker leaves. And Sacha Dhawan as the Master has such insatiable chemistry with Whittaker's Doctor, Chibnall needs to get these two in yet another showdown stat. As we Whovians know, time is rarely linear, and with this franchise, neither is satisfying storytelling, so I keep the faith. Just because things are wibbly-wobbly now, doesn't mean they can't get fabulously timey-wimey in the future. So, what did you think of Revolution of the Daleks? Did you wish I talked about Captain Jack more? I wish I talked about Captain Jack more. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, like, share, and subscribe down below, and hit that notification bell. It goes ding when there's stuff.